Welcome to Justice for All, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of law, the Supreme Court, and the U.S. Constitution. Judge Joe Brown is your host, and today we're kicking off our series with episode 1, Justice for All. In this episode, we're focusing on one of the most talked about legal figures of recent times, FANI Willis. We've compiled a special collage of 3 insightful videos originally aired in the beginning of 2024, bringing you up to speed on the latest in her legal corruption and controversy. Remember, your engagement is crucial, so please like this video, share it with others who care about the rule of law, and don't forget to comment below with your thoughts or questions. Let's keep the conversation going. Now, let's get into the heart of the matter. Here's our first 3 videos on the FANI Willis corruption saga. Enjoy.
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor.
Law firms will take this as a retainer.
What? It must be a law firm where they hungry as hell. Now you gonna help me with this parole I'm dealing with?
Judge Joe Brown's all-new barbecue sauce and seasoning. Justice in the form of flavor. With one taste of our premium blends of all-natural ingredients, herbs, and spices, you'll fall in love with meat all over again. Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce collection is made up of 2 zesty flavors, original and spicy. There's only one way to bring order back to barbecuing. Just add Judge Joe Brown's all-natural barbecue sauce and seasoning, and you be the judge.
Testing. So, Dad testified today, day 2 of the court hearing proceedings of FANI Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Yesterday, FANI Willis, took this, well, not the stand, but she was questioned yesterday and displayed unprofessional behavior. She was the stereotypical angry black woman demeanor. And today the father took the stand, the total opposite. You know her father personally. The New York Post, let me just share this real quick before I hand over the mic to you. The father, where is it? Oh, here we go. So already, Trump prosecutor FANI Willis' dad was top Black Panther who called cops the enemy, right? And like I said, of course, they want to add sauce to it, but start off and tell us your thoughts on her father, John Clifton Floyd III.
Okay, he wasn't top Black Panther in that area, Southern California. That would have started off with Shermont Banks when he was a student at Cal State, LA. Then it would have been Bunchy Carter, who became head after he got out of prison. He'd formerly been leader of the Slawsons, a street gang, which went defunct after the upset in 1965 in August. Geronimo Pratt, who had been Sergeant at Arms, Minister of Defense for the party in Southern California. He ran it for a while after that. That's Southern California. That's distinct from Huey Newton, who was in and out of jail up in the Bay Area, along with Eldridge Cleaver up in the Bay Area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he wasn't top Panther. he might be more characterized as being one of the top people in the Black Student Alliance. And in those days, there was a close connection between the Panther Party, which was getting into the schools, but basically was street, the Black Student Union, and that would be as to each of the many colleges and universities in the Southern California area, and the overall thing, Black Student Alliance. And I've said many times that the militant, aggressive Black folk in those days were students, not the street people. All right. Now, John Floyd and I went to school together for about 8 some years, and over the intervening years, we were involved with various and sundry things for National Bar Association, that's Black lawyers, and also with a classmate of ours named Yuko Babu that he talks about indirectly when he's saying where I was before I came here this Wednesday for these proceedings was working on a documentary with the Pan African Film Festival. That's another one of the brothers that was doing stuff. See, John was a good student, and he wound up being a Harvard professor. He also wound up representing Mandela in South Africa. And in fact, he tried to retire there, he testified to. And he tried mostly criminal cases, some personal injury, Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco.
Yeah, I think he said it
Chicago.
was family practice, criminal, and then everything else was whoever walked through the door that could pay bill.
But 85% criminal, and it showed. And he said he testified he had had thousands of trials, or 1,000 plus trials. It showed. He's probably the most advanced trial lawyer that had been in the courtroom, or even including the judge. But the judge was good. I said that before. But back to John Floyd. He tried cases all over the country and in other places in the world. Now, when we get these woke clowns who want to talk about what they've done and they're this, that, and the other, and they've never tried a case, where they tend to be boule, whatever. See, John used to go out on patrols out in the hood when young Black students and street people would go out and make sure that law enforcement and everybody else behaved themselves. See, they don't do that now. And people didn't run from the cops because they were scared. You were either trying to get away or you didn't run. Now, I see a whole lot of punked out behavior that he is the exact opposite of. I'm the exact opposite of, and a whole lot of people that the woke folk never heard of because the mainstream media suppresses stuff. Now, this is somebody that did hang with the Panthers. He had a connection, but it was more often through the Black Student Alliance, which actually was to an extent more powerful then than the Black Panther Party was, but most people now don't know that. And the other thing is that he did a lot, as did other brothers, for a wide spectrum of Black folk that actually accomplished something. So he was upholding. And you could see what he did in his wisdom. Did you notice how polite he was?
Yeah. Should I play just the intro real quick?
Yeah, and then how if you knew what you were looking at, and half the people that were lawyers in the courtroom didn't even look at it, he was evading some traps and setting some traps. Like, one of them that I thought was the most beautifully artful was just sneaking in that he was a professor at Harvard. And that's like beautiful, man. You put that in there, you were just establishing credibility. Now go ahead and play this stuff.
Okay.
We can see some examples.
Say, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you tell the court, are you currently retired?
Yes, I am.
And prior to being retired, can you tell the court a little bit about, did you work in the legal?
I'm an attorney. I practice law. I've probably tried 1,000 cases. About 50% of my practice was criminal law. 25% of it was family law. And the rest was whatever walked through the front door could pay for.
Okay. And tell the court, are you from Atlanta?
No, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles.
Just like I
I
did.
spent most of my legal career, I would say, in Washington, D.C. was kind of the circle, but I've tried cases all over the country, and I tried the longest. I was the first lawyer to try an international criminal court. I was with the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. I was in trial there for 4.5 years in Arusha, Tanzania, and Hague in the Netherlands.
Okay. When you weren't there, it sounds like the kind of center of gravity was Washington, D.C.
Correct, but I've tried cases in West Virginia, Maryland, Florida, California.
All over.
Yes.
And do you, sir, can you tell the court, do you have any children?
I have one daughter, FANI Willis.
Okay. And I want to direct your attention back to 2019, okay?
Yes.
Back in 2019, can you tell the court, did you move here to Atlanta?
I was living in Johannesburg, South Africa. And unfortunately, for some reasons, I could not get an extended visa. When I retired from the practice of law in 2018, I moved to South Africa. And I had to leave South Africa, and I did then come to Atlanta.
Okay, and do you, sir, remember about the time period in 2019 when you moved in with your daughter here in Atlanta?
It would have been the spring or summer of 2019.
And after you moved here, did you get a driver's license to kind of confirm your residency in Atlanta?
Well, my driver's license for the District of Columbia was going to expire on my birthday, which is in October. And yes, I did.
But listen to the way he's going to split
here in the state of Georgia.
Got a map, let's witness. You can just take a look at what's been
okay, Your Honor,
See,
if you don't mind, my eyes are very bad, which is one of the reasons I retired, and so I need a magnifying glass. So I'll be constantly. Thank you.
He has permission of the court. He's polite, unlike his daughter.
Right.
Yes, I see. It was issued on 9/28/2019.
Okay. So before we get there, do you recognize State Exhibit 2?
Yes, just my.
Now, you can do what you want, but I just wanted you to see how you deal with the courtesies of the profession.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Contrast that to the way his daughter is behaving. And also, I don't know if you're going to play it, although you know this guy is a militant, he will be testifying that he only reads conservative newspapers and watches conservative stuff. You know, he lists the papers and the editor.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm trying to find the clips real quick. Okay. Paying cash.
I'm sure IRS had a giggle moment with that. And they listen to these things, by the way.
The IRS?
Yeah, they do. I had a former cousin-in-law who was a chief investigator for IRS. She said she liked listening on these programs and instructed her staff. They were investigators in the criminal section to see what they were talking about, and they'd follow up. Got a lot of prosecutions out of it.
I think I've heard that.
And she was talking about withdrawals more than 10,000 cash and stuff. So I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, okay. And
Oh,
then I want to see what happens with the result of these specific transportation tickets that the wife of Wade introduced in her proceedings against him. And they list her name and they list the flight and they list his name and his flight, same flight. She filed hotel accommodations in the trial, the DMV area, as she calls it.
well,
Interesting coincidence that she did not know he was there at the same time and he was in the same hotel, or seat D when she was in seat C,
well, the
same
thing
on
is,
airplane, but
she kept saying that she has, at one point up to 15,000 in her house in cash, and she would give him cash. She gave him 2,400 for his birthday, and when they went on a cruise, she paid him back in cash. And she's lying because, she's lying because she refused to say she used her debit card. And in this clip that I'm going to show, she was saying
well, wait a minute. That's what I said. See, what she's testifying to is Attorney General for a district in Atlanta, Georgia, is federal criminality in violation of the Internal Revenue Code. So that's interesting that the DA is on the witness stand under oath testifying to engaging in criminality. And see, if she had thought about it, what she should have done? Taken the Fifth Amendment. See, she didn't think. She's supposed to be the chief prosecutor and she doesn't know the Fifth Amendment. It's like,
because she wanted to get up here and run her mouth to say, I'm right, you're wrong, you're a liar. But I'm going to play this clip.
You never wrote him a check? Ma'am, I don't have checks. Okay. So you have no proof of any reimbursement for any of these things because it was all cash, right? The testimony of one witness is enough to prove a fact. So my question was, do you have any proof? Is that what you're intimating right here? I'm asking if you have any proof that you paid for any of these. The proof is what I just told you. You have no written proof. Is that correct? So I have some probably some transactions like in Belize. I probably spent $500 on my card in Belize. I spent 800, I can't remember, $900 on each of our tickets to go to Belize. I did the $700. I probably got some minor expenses in Aruba that would be on a card. But for the most part, for those trips, other than, so the 2 cruises, I gave him money for those before we ever left because they were pre-booked. Let me answer. Well, the question was if you had any written proof. And so I've answered you that I've had written proof. We can move to the next question. If you've answered if you had any written proof, and that was my question. I want to make sure that we're clear that for the 2 cruises, Judge, I asked if she gave him written proof.
We're not going to talk over each other. Ms. Merchant, she answered your question, so we can ask the next question. Ms. Willis, Ms. Cross will have plenty of opportunities.
Stop a second. She didn't answer it well, so she thought she was being slick. So it looks like the judge is defending her, but actually she just got trapped in a bad situation because as it is right now, she's paid out a considerable amount of money in cash. It was not reported to IRS. There are potential taxes due to him. And when you start dealing with transactions over a certain amount, somebody wants to be privy to receipts. Where are the receipts? So that's interesting that when the judge cut that off, it looks like he's helping her out. Actually, he left her in a bad place that she put herself. Now, keep going. And one other further thing. He's going to be the decision maker. There's no jury. So
the judge is going to decide if she will be removed from the case.
Yeah, the judge, and there's some other things too. She's an officer of the court, and she acts through him. So she has betrayed her obligation to represent him responsibly as an officer of his court. So she's subject to sanctions that he can administer for her violation of his trust in her as an officer of the entity that he represents.
When your
Go
role
ahead.
as district attorney, you know that public funds are scrutinized and money is scrutinized and things like that. You understand.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You understand you're under a microscope. You have reporting requirements, all of those types of things. You have no record other than your testimony of the money that you've given Mr. Wade.
You've already asked that question. Let's keep going.
He just put
When
her
you
in
took
a mess
office,
again.
you had a tax lien of
Stop. See, ordinarily, if there's a jury, he'd probably let that question go in because the jury may or may not have heard it. They adrift, but he's heard it. So he's the decision maker, the trier of fact. He doesn't need to hear it again. And by listening carefully and reading between the lines, you can tell where it is in his head. Now, he doesn't mean that that's going to be conclusive, but those look like pretty much that's chiseled in stone. You know, these are going to be the facts. And when we get back and we'll look at them, they're going to be up there. So, yeah, okay.
$4,600. Did you pay that with cash when you made that tax lien whole?
I probably paid through however you pay.
Okay.
Stop
But you were
again.
saying that
Stop again. See, there's another thing in here. She's opening herself up for further prosecutions because I'm sure the state of Georgia, like every other one, has a reporting requirement when an official spends funds that are going to be reimbursed by the state or that come out of state funding that has been appropriated to somebody's office. They're going to require careful rationalization. In other words, where are your receipts, et cetera, et cetera. So since this is to an extent subject to funds that were reimbursed, it's going to be problematical because to a great extent, the issue is why didn't you disclose to somebody that you had a very personal relationship with this guy when he's supposed to be, quote unquote, independent counsel who has no connection with the district attorney's office. So if he's betting the district attorney, that's very intimate, hot, wet, and juicy connection with the entity. So that's where this is going. That's the relevance.
you had amounts of cash. You still had that lien in 2022 when you were dating Wade and going on these trips. So the cash that you gave him, that could have been used to pay this tax lien off?
You gonna tell me how to pay my bills?
Object. This is not relevant as it relates to why we're here today.
Ms. Merchant, are you trying to establish that she was insolvent in some way?
I definitely was trying to establish that she did not have these mass amounts of cash that she's talking about. Yes.
In other words, stop it. He's going to show that she is perjuring herself because she has made statements that closely proximate to this time she was destitute and broke. So if she's claiming to be destitute and broke due to a 2016 or 18 campaign, I forget which, how does she have all this cash money right in hand if she's supposed to be flat broke busted? See, she's being slick. And when the judge is listening to it, see, one witness has testified over here, another one's over here. This has come out there, and it's like a canvas, but you have different painters come in, and they're all painting a picture that the trier of fact, who is not a jury here, but the judge can look at and say, I can make out what's up there. Now, how does this fit in with what you may have? I don't know if you're going to, with the testimony about her being from her about being flat, broke, busted, or at least they were questioning her about statements she had made that had been published about being flat, broke, busted. In other words, now she's saying she had $15,000 in cash in the apartment and she's saying she had this amount of cash, but at other stages, I forget where we are right now on the examination, cross-examination of the witness, the one of the parties to this action here. But it has come out that she is supposed to be destitute and busted. So that seems like interesting testimony for somebody who's in that financial condition. Go ahead.
All right.
Sorry.
Re-ask the question.
You had a tax lien in 2022.
About a minute left on this.
You say I did?
And you did not use this cash that you had to reimburse Mr. Wade to pay that off, correct?
No. I went shopping too when I didn't pay it off.
And you talked about
Stop.
a lot of interviews.
That was totally inappropriate and idiotic. How do you get to be a DA and be so damn stupid? You don't do that.
What do we call that? Too smart for your own good, or
no? That's just being an ass.
Okay, she was an asshole today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And see, you don't do that. And this comes from the arrogance that I have seen. And I won't be sexist when I say it. It's an observation. A lot of women professionals have this kind of attitude. It's like if it was in a guy, it would be obnoxiously cocky. In other words,
that's fair.
Back off a little bit. What the hell do you think you're doing? This is the guy that all your shit hangs on. This is the trier effect. That's like being obnoxious and arrogant with a jury. You just don't do this. And see, that's how you could get this kind of female lawyer to lose case after case. You would evoke her ego, and you would, during the trial, exhibit some humility, and she thinks she's got you, so she would keep attacking you because I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to beat Joe Brown. He thinks he's all this and that. I'm going to show him. And while she's trying to show everybody how she can beat you, you're kicking her ass, and she doesn't realize it because you're focused on the case. She's focused on you. And see, this kind of attitude is endemic to what happens. You're not there for a purpose, which is to represent the state of Georgia. You're there because you're showing out about yourself. Now, go on.
Right.
I would not characterize it as a lot. I probably have spoken to them 2 or 3 times.
My question is relevant as to.
I think it's already come up that finances are discussed in the book. I'll overrule that.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, you can continue your answer.
What came up with Mr. Wade as it relates to hearsay statements that he was asked about in relation to what Ms. Willis may or may not have said in relation to an author. So it's not relevant to the testimony that's occurring at this time.
I think Ms. Merchant has said that inside the book, she also makes a statement as to her own.
By the way, what you had right there, you see the judge overruled the objection. They were trying to save her. But the bottom line is it was relevant. This judge impressed me. He knows what he's doing. Listen to this woman 3 and 4 hours every day. So, yeah.
Yeah. So he's not a guest on this channel. This is the Man Up Show with Judge Joe Brown. Fernandez, the judge makes so much sense. He dispelled the notion of us not going to the moon in my pea-brain head. Thank you. You're welcome. Judge, is this poll for real? Which poll? Which poll, Bob? Which poll are you talking about? If we had the phone records of Fannie and Wade, wouldn't we know? Have they opened themselves up on to get those records of calls and text?
Yes, they have. But here's the thing. It doesn't make any difference. See, if they're telling the truth, they're in trouble. And if they're lying, they're in trouble. Because if they had this affair going before he got the appointment, they're in violation of the canons of ethics, and they should have reported it to the court. They violated their fiduciary responsibility as sworn officers of that court. If they developed the affair, like a love tryst, just developed a love relationship in the office, as soon as it happened, they had an obligation as officers of the court to bring it to the judge's attention. They could have done it in chambers in what they call in camera, and the judge would have kept it confidential. And if he said, you got to go, you got to go. If he said, I'll let you in, but you're going to have to advise opposing counsel of this, so we have full disclosure. And they could have taken the risk of the embarrassment. Now they have opened themselves up to money laundering, fraud, bribery, extortion. They have opened themselves up to failure to report to the state agencies. It looks like there's an impropriety because she gets to sign off on his claims. He's supposed to be independent, but she gets to approve how much he's claiming. And what he's already been paid behind his claims is more than the president of the United States gets in a whole year, more than the U.S. Attorney General gets as a salary for a whole year. And it's 3.5 times what the other 3 experienced lawyers have already put in play for their claims. So they've taken vacations on it and other things, and it looks like another issue of fraud. Meanwhile, when you started talking about she took her money out of her 501k, that's taxable income. She didn't report that. Next thing, there's a tax lien on her home, and she's talking about she had $15,000 in cash in the house to pay that tax lien, which would have covered it, and she didn't. And then you have to take an affidavit and fill it out for IRS, subject to federal penalties of perjury about your financial circumstances. And here she is, she's stuck with that. And then all of these cash transactions that IRS demands be reduced to writing and properly receipted. She didn't do it, but Wade did. So he's covered. She's not. And she is supposed to be the chief prosecuting agency for Atlanta. So that's Fulton County. The other thing is she also revealed herself. I went and looked. She has no criminal law experience. She's been doing civil law. So she really shouldn't have the position, because instead of being the seasoned expert on the subject, she's one of the rookies in the whole office. She just got in there on political purposes. So, I mean, you have all of this thing, and then you have these records that are already admitted in a civil proceeding relative to the divorce. And here she comes, la-da-da-da-da. She's making some firm denials and statements on the record that just might be contradicted with the proof in the other record, which will come out. So she's already had charges filed against her by citizenry when it comes to ethics, which is permitted since you do have a license, courtesy of the people of the state of Georgia, to practice law. And you've got special privileges and things that go along with that, just like doctors. You walk in and want to get a Schedule I drug, you try to get that on your own, you might do 15, 20, 25 years in the penitentiary. But the doctor can prescribe it if in his sole estimation you need it. Same thing with lawyers. You do something wrong, you're stuck with it. Your lawyer tells you to do it, he's stuck with the consequences. See, you are an officer of the court. You're licensed to practice law, and that includes to have say on what the law is that has, not like we argue around here, but when a lawyer says it, you can rely on it. I was a judge, so when I said it, I could put you in jail, let you out of jail, deny your motion, grant your motion. You might go up on appeal. I might be right, might be wrong, but I'm the one that's going to determine what happens to you, just like this kind of judge is doing here, but he's acting like there's no such thing as an interlocutory appeal or an appellate court that says, that ain't going to happen, which is likely to be the case. So we have all of these rules because we control.
Oh God. I hate when can y'all please stop calling Judge Joe Brown while he's doing this show?
We control the operation of the courts, which have the authority, by the way, to overrule the state legislature. See, that judge and any other judge on a trial level can declare an act of the Georgia state legislation unconstitutional and say it doesn't apply. Oh, it's out of here. He has that power and authority. He can grant or deny a motion. And this idiot walks in when the lawyers for the district attorney's office are arguing that she has no need to testify, and she stuck her dumb bunny behind in a situation where anybody with some sense and knowledge of the criminal law would remember this. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used in evidence, may be used in evidence against you. You have a right to consult with an attorney before. See, she was not the subject of the lawsuit. She was a witness. So she decided to interject her dumb bunny self, and she tore her drawers. And as you said, you could see her drawers anyway because she didn't have on a proper foundation under that red pink dress, which, as you pointed out, may have been on backwards because she just threw it on and didn't have anybody there to zip it up for her when the zipper was in the back.
Right. Let me.
I can't hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me? Oh my God. You're gonna have to drop out and come back in. Can testing. Because when your screen went black, somebody was calling you. They probably messed up your audio. Can you hear me now? Testing. Can you guys watching in the
chat? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me? Let me know, guys, if you can hear me and the judge. Go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. Yeah, drop out. Go out. Go out. Drop out. They can hear both of us, but he can't hear me. He can't hear me because some people. I'm not even going to that right now. Let me text him. Go out and come back in. Damn, and it's like soon when he's getting good, go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. Yeah. Right when he's getting good. And this is the thing. Trust me, a lot of people know on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do this show. Why y'all calling him? He's not going to stop to answer your call. And if it's important, leave a message. He'll get back. It's only 2 hours. He was on a roll. I hate that. Testing. Can you hear me?
I can now. I couldn't hear you at all.
Yeah, tell them people stop calling you. They know you working right now.
I've got this thing on Do Not Disturb, and I've also got it on airplane mode. So somehow or another they're getting through, and I can't get a goddamn call otherwise.
All right, so let me go to this. It says Fulton sidebar. It seemed like somebody tried to call you every time you're going in on her ass. But anyway, Fulton Ethics.
And by the way, the call was from Atlanta.
Oh shit. Oh, honey, they watching us.
But they're not. They don't give us credit for that.
Wait, but you do have a friend in Atlanta.
I mean, no, that wasn't a friend in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're watching us. Fulton Ethics Board will take up complaints against FANI WILLIS. Fulton County Board of Ethics will hear 2 complaints against District Attorney FANI WILLIS that question her conduct in election interference case. The complaints, we can't even see this. Let me make this bigger. The complaints are unlikely to have much impact on the prosecution of former President Donald Trump and the 14 other defendants in the case. There is a disagreement about whether the county ethics code even applies to Willis, who is state constitutional office. And even if she were found to have violated a county code, the penalty is only an administrative sanction of up to
it has nothing to do with the case. It's her problems. Remember, she wasn't on trial. She's a witness. See, the issue before the judge is to remove the Fulton County DA's office from further handling of this case. The issue is whether the special counsel Wade should be removed from further handling of this case. And the reason you have special counsel is because she shot her mouth off before and created an inference, an appearance that she was not detached from this case. So what happens is that he will decide whether this will go to the state committee to bring in another office. And if he does, that probably would obviate the need for special counsel. And also, if you bring in another office, that office is going to have to get a chance to get up to speed, and that will kick this whole thing until after the election cycle. And in addition, that prosecutor may say, in the exercise of his discretion, in a review of this case, we find that there is insufficient evidence to go forward, or they may do what they did with Biden, her, HUR, the special counsel for the Attorney General's office and the Justice Department, said, we find there's probable cause that Biden said, we think there's probable cause he committed a crime, but because of his age and creeping senility, we won't charge him or go before a grand jury. So, you know, you have this prosecution against Trump, but I downloaded the 92 pages of the indictment, and I looked at them and I said, so what? If everything they claim is true, there's no crime that's been committed, because everything he did is basically essentially protected under the First Amendment. And the other thing is it's just preposterous that there are at least 5 counts in that indictment, if I recall, where she is claiming that one of the felonious acts is suggesting to followers that they read or look at Newsmax. Now, I look at Newsmax, read it every day, so I guess I would be committing a felony in Fulton County. The other thing is, with all of the white agencies that have brought in these international businesses into Atlanta because it's gay friendly there, and she's talking all this hoopla about black girl magic and black this and black that and white supremacy this and white supremacy that. That's not very comforting to a good portion of the Atlanta population. Plus, the other thing is Atlanta is not a majority black city. It's got a high percentage of blacks, but there are other people that live there. So what about them? And they listen to this.
I want to go to the super chats, and then I'm gonna bring in another element of Fannie Willis. Thank you, 1-800 Black. Nikki moves her mouth like Gomer Powell. I don't know who that is. She's talking about Nikki Haley. James Seymour, Joe Brown is the man. Excellent chat with the both of you. Thank you, Miss Dana. You're welcome. Ronald Lee. Yeah. Is this true? Mr. Wade was barred in 1999?
I have no idea.
I gotta look into that. Might be. I gotta look into that.
Maybe.
Judge, do you think that this judge already knows what he's going to do when it comes to Miss Willis? He's just letting her hang herself.
Well, he might be doing that, but she's entitled to, well, the representation that the attorneys are giving for the district attorney's office allows them the opportunity to build their record for the appeal. So he's properly letting them build their record. Unfortunately, they're depending upon the reason they're there, which is her loudmouth sister girl BS. And she basically is making the case for the defendants that the office should be removed by her inability to conduct herself professionally. And it's also bad for the Democratic Party because they've been trying to say, this is what we want you to have running your lives. This is Tracy Abrams or Stacey Abrams. This is Kamala Harris. This is Lori Lightfoot. This is that woman up in New York. This is all of the people that are trying to say, we want the black girl magic to run the black community. Forget the black men. They're stupid enough to respond to take your booties to the poll. But you see, everybody was thinking, well, there are 92 pages of indictment against Trump in Atlanta. He must have done something. and then you get a load of this. It's like, you got to be kidding. See, America's had 50 years of, what is it, CSI and justice for the people, and you see the dignified DA, chief DA, who settles his assistants, and all this isn't going to work. We have these considerations. Look, we can't have this. You got to have this tight. You really have this, or what are you doing? You know, you could lose your job if you do this. And see, male or female, you have this dignity, and then you get, let me tell you what I'm going, you know, like, what? You know, like, maybe there's nothing to this, and it just defeats the purpose.
Another question. Fanny was a witness against herself, right?
No, she wasn't a witness against herself. She incriminated herself. The object here is, should the office be removed? If you want to understand the office, it's not the individual, it's the office. You ever heard this phrase, the king is dead, long live the king? Well, the king just died. The next king's in, so the kingship doesn't die. But the occupant, who is the literal king at the time, he may, it's the same thing. It does. That's what happened with Bill Cosby. I was saying this. You know, one DA who is in charge of the office says, we're not going to prosecute. So the civil judge says, you got to answer the interrogatory. The new one says, I'm not going to be bound by my predecessor. I told you when this happened. I said, she is, because it's the office that bound itself, not the individual. And what did the state Supreme Court say? They kicked the whole conviction because it was violative of the Fifth Amendment. Now, that DA didn't know it. She's a woman. And then here we have another woman down here, which is setting a very bad tone for female lawyers. She didn't know it either because she couldn't even deal with it personally. She was a witness. She was a potential witness that the representatives of the district attorney's office for Fulton County were arguing did not need to testify. But she jumped in there and surprised everybody and started running her mouth off. And it's like, this woman has not been in a courtroom. This woman has never had to deal with the issue of a Fifth Amendment situation because she's law.
Oh my God.
But she's in charge of criminal prosecutions for one of the largest cities in America. Whoa.
Right. Another question. Thank you, Steve. He says, if it is true that the judge is viewing Bradley's text messages or further testimony in camera, is that an indication of corruption?
No, it's not. It's what happens is it's called in camera. Oftentimes, a lawyer might have a problem. And what is it? Maybe his client is lying and he knows he's lying, and his client wants him to call him as a witness in his own behalf, so he can't be part of it. So, Your Honor, if we camera, this is ex parte communication, but counsel thinks it's justified. Well, the state know about this? Yes, sir, they do. Have you apprised them of what the subject is? Yes, sir, I have. Well, come on back, bring Madam Court Reporter, and he can listen to it and say, well, you have a point. This record will be sealed except for purposes of appeal. And what it is the person said, my client is lying through his teeth and I don't want to put him on the witness stand, which happens. Well, counselor, what you do is you call the person, you ask him what his name is and ask him if he wants to testify. Go sit down in your seat and the court will permit him to give narrative testimony, so you have no complicity in eliciting perjured testimony. All right? So that's the way it works. It happens all the time. Even for the court. Excuse me. Isn't the court acquainted with you? Well, Your Honor, about 25 years ago, when you were running the public defender's office, you interviewed me at my apartment about, a case, blah, 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 blah. Well, gentlemen, ma'am, the court doesn't feel this would cause it to be biased one way or the other, but it'd be all too glad to recuse itself if that is your pleasure. No, Your Honor, stay on the case. We have no objection from the state defense. We have no objection, Your Honor. All right, you want a fair judge. a fair referee for the proceedings. So it happens all the time. Your Honor, may we approach, what is it? It just dawned on me, Your Honor, I'm 67 years old, but I used to date this woman, or her mother in high school. Well, do you think that's going to make you biased or unable to continue serving in your capacity? No, sir. State, what do you think? I mean, it's not unusual because people know each other.
What is the sanction? What is the sanction for wrongful prosecutions?
Basically none, unless it's way out of line. It might be a matter of some kind of bias. If it's so far out of line, the person loses their immunity and they can be proceeded against civilly. Justice Bernice Donald on the Sixth Circuit, somebody I mentored, wrote an excellent opinion on that in a case involving a juvenile court judge in Shelby County. So the issue is, if somebody does something way out of line with their job that there's no way to justify, then they act without the immunity of the position. There's a general immunity that exists all across the country. Anything that is said in a courtroom is totally immune from any comeback for defamation of character. So,
all right.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, there is no comeback on abuse of the prosecutorial process except the next election turn them out.
All right, we have a couple more. We have a few more questions. Thank you, Big Boss. Abba says, is it a conflict of interest for the judge? Actually, let me make this bigger for you.
No, that happens. It's independent. This arose.
All right, let me read it though. Is it a conflict of interest for the judge to make a ruling in Fan's case? He donated for her.
He donated to her campaign.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't on the bench.
All right, oh my God.
Judge, or he might have been. He can donate to anyone he wants to. He can make a campaign contribution as long as it's not excessive or over any limits. He still has his First Amendment rights in that respect. He can't campaign for somebody.
Okay, we have another question. The judge, at this point, can or should she recuse herself from the case? It's a big L. Will that put an asterisk on the RICO cases pending?
No. But what happens is she actually has put herself behind the 8 ball of having done some of the things that she's admitted to, claimed, bragged about, so to speak, that are prohibited under the Georgia RICO statute. So I find it interesting that she's prosecuting somebody for RICO violations under Georgia law, and she's committed some of the same acts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you hear the judge give $150 to her campaign?
That's nothing wrong with that. See, it's professional. It's like friends or colleagues might play each other on a golf course, 500 per hole.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So,
in other words, it doesn't cut down on the intensity of the competition or the set to. Okay. And you work around people for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. You don't know what the future holds for you. So it's not unusual for lawyers to donate to the DA because they might have political interest in the DA.
Okay.
So there's nothing per se wrong with that.
And last question before I implement something else. I'm sorry, let me make this bigger.
What's the same question?
Is it improper for the judge to have okay, yeah, so it's the same question.
No, it's not.
Okay. All right, I want to bring this into the fold. Prosecutor in Donald Trump's Georgia election trial tries to block divorce lawyer's testimony. So and this dropped just a couple hours ago. Nathan Wade's motion aims to block testimony from his divorce lawyer, Terrence Bradley, in a hearing where defendants seek to disqualify him and District Attorney FANI Willis from the case. So he wants to block his aims to block testimony of his divorce lawyer who testified last week Friday. His name is
attorney-client privilege, in other words.
Well, the attorney-client privilege was for the text messages that the judge.
No, in other words, he's
But
trying.
Wade is trying to say I want his testimony thrown out.
Yeah, he's not thrown out. He just says he can't testify. But the question comes in is it pursuant to any confidences or just simply an administrative matter of what he did? Did he get served with this? That has nothing to do with
the lawyer
confidence.
testified already.
No, listen. In other words, was this filed? Not the truth or consequences. Yes, that was filed. Did this occur? Yes, this occurred. In other words, if it is a matter independent of a confidence, then the lawyer can be compelled to give evidence about it. He can't talk about what a client told.
Let me read this. Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor in the Georgia election interference case against former President Donald Trump, is trying to stop his divorce lawyer from being questioned about his romantic relationship with Fannie Willis. Wade urged Fulton County Superior Judge Scott McAfee on Thursday not to hold a confidential meeting with his lawyer, arguing that prying more information from Terrence Bradley, his former law partner and divorce lawyer, about the relationship with Willis would violate attorney-client privilege.
It might.
Huh?
It might. It depends upon the circumstances. See, what would usually happen is if this was going to go in front of a jury, the judge would confidentially review what this is all about. The other side would be entitled to be present, maybe not. It would be an in-camera thing, and he could decide whether it would be admissible. He might rule in favor of Wade. There's no telling, but a lot of this is going to simply be, is this confidential? You see, in other words, at the time, was it intended to be a confidence or was it intended to be a remark? If it has something to do with the pendency of a case that his lawyer is representing him on, the divorce case, yeah, I was cheating on the woman and, I was sleeping with this Fanny. That might be something that he could say is detrimental to the representation that he was retained to perform. In other words, in the divorce. So that would be sacrosanct. But then on again, it was just a thing. Did he or did he not, independent of the representation, do anything with this? And then it's up to him to be called and for the record say, Your Honor, I would object on behalf of my client to answering this because it would be counsel's contention that it is part of the attorney-client privilege. See, in other words, you have to build a record. If it goes up on appeal, this is attorney-client privilege. How do you know? There's nothing in the record. Well, he said, no, you have to build a record. Somebody's got to be under oath, no recordation. Somebody's got to swear to it. Call the witness. What's your name? What do you do for your organization? I'm an attorney. Do you represent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? This man, yes. Now, I have a question for you. Your Honor, we would assert the attorney-client privilege and urge the court to accept our proposition that this is immune from disclosure. The judge can say yay or nay, and he can say, well, unfortunately, in attempting to uphold my oath, I will decline the answer, and the judge can find him in contempt or not. And if he finds him in contempt, then there's going to be a hearing, and then that matter goes up on appeal. So,
all right. So it says Judge Scott McAfee's private meeting with a key witness could decide whether Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis will be allowed to continue prosecuting Donald Trump in the Georgia's interference case. Atlanta-based defense lawyer Noah Pines told Newsweek that he doesn't expect Willis to be disqualified based on what he's seen in the case so far, but the outcome could change if additional evidence is presented to McAfee in a closed-door meeting with Terrence Bradley, a friend of the former law partner of Willis, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade.
He's wrong because he's missing this point. Even if they're telling the truth, they need to be removed. You know why?
Why?
Because if the affair arose in 2021 or 22 after he was appointed, both of them had an obligation to report it to the judge at that time. So by their own contention, they violated their fiduciary responsibility to the court as an officer of the court by not making that report. So he's wrong on that. The judge can exclude them because they didn't uphold their responsibility. If it occurred before he was appointed, they had an obligation as officers of the court to bring that to the court's attention. They did not. So either way.
Thank you, Sweet Tea, for the channel, my friends. Thank you. Thank you. And you're very welcome. Stop. Okay. I'm talking to myself because it was something that I wanted to ask for, and it kind of slipped my mind. I put a poll, right? Should Fani Willis be disbarred? 85% says hell yes. 15 says no. We have 691 votes. What say you, Judge? Should she be disbarred?
There might be some hardship. She might be suffering from some mental health issues. I don't know. Maybe there's pressure on her. Maybe well, okay. Let me give you an example. They gave a sitting judge in Shelby County a break. You know what the problem was? She was losing her mind, literally. And one morning, the staff of the clerk's office walk in. They've got to walk down the hallway behind her chambers, and she's sitting out there wide awake in a nightie, see-through, all her breasts showing, and no panties on. And she's sitting cross-legged against the wall out in the hallway. Okay, this woman declined to sign off and submit all of the expense claims for the operation of the courts that she was supposed to be the administrative officer for that year. And she hadn't signed her dockets for 4 whole years. So she obviously had mental health issues, and they gave her a break, didn't snatch her law license. They just required that she get treatment. So these kind of things happen. There's another woman, a judge right now in Shelby County, who's in trouble because she has a problem with, well, intoxicants, let's say, and drug or alcohol. Won't say which. I don't know, but the accusations are there, and there's some people are demanding that she be removed. She's been fairly newly elected to the position. So there are problems. There was one judge that couldn't keep his hands off his special clerks, and he got admonished, and they had secret proceedings, and he was held not to commit it again. Then he had to resign because in a conference in another state at a hotel, he couldn't keep his hands off of one of the employees, female, so he turned in his resignation. Another one I got caught I got caught up in having to requalify 5,000 prospective jurors because the fool, who's an idiot, got up there and told the jurors that if a witness didn't testify, it was probably because he was a career criminal and didn't want his record revealed, which is absolutely ridiculous. So he submitted his resignation. See, these kind of things happen all the time.
All right, so the Fani conversation is not going anywhere. We're going to continue we may do a show tomorrow, depending on the judge's schedule, but you have your show. I don't know if that's, whatever, but definitely the judge should come with a ruling by next week, but we're going to stay on this fanny pack train in the future to
and
come.
Then there's more to it. Remember what I sent you? Did you listen to the recording?
Yeah. So
I won't go into it, but let's just say this. It is a recording that a whistleblower made of a conversation.
Oh, yes. You know what? Wait, pause for a second. if you have time, we could do a quick show tomorrow on that, because I keep.
Well, I'm
and I'm going to blame you right now.
It's a scoop, and I'm not going to go into
Forgetting
any further
tell me
what's out there and complain. That's another complaint. See,
right? You keep we don't have time to go into that.
we won't. But let's just say she's got a cascade of wrongs, relative to accusations come to light.
I do want to talk about that, but I want to talk about that not tonight, tomorrow, or over the weekend if you have time. So, all right.
Sure.